Hey guys, Dimension Master Studios here. How y'all doing? So, in case you guys don't know, recently we got part 1 of season 1 of the latest era of Ninjago Dragons Rising. And since it's been a while since the episodes were released, I've had a lot of time to think about the episodes. And in today's video, I decided that I wanted to rank all the part 1 episodes that we got so that way I could share my thoughts on them. So let's get into this whole thing. However, before we do get into anything, there are a few things that I want to say first. For starters, in case it isn't obvious, spoilers for the latest season of Ninjago, but also this list is just my opinion, yours can be different, and that is totally fine. Feel free to leave your personal opinions down below. And also, when it comes to the tier list that I have, it contains every single Ninjago episode. However, in today's video, we're only going to be focusing on the Dragons Rising episodes. However, if you guys want me to make a video where I rank every single Ninjago episode, then please tell me down in the comment section. And so, with all that out of the way, let's get into this whole thing. Starting off with the Merge Part 1, I'm going to put this episode in C tier. I feel like this episode overall was alright. I liked the stuff that we got with the villains during the episode. I thought that Rapton was pretty funny, and I liked Roz's introduction. Plus, seeing Lloyd appear at the end of the episode was pretty cool. But for most of the episode, it honestly felt kind of boring, and I didn't think it was that interesting or exciting overall. Also, when it comes to the introduction of the original ninja at the beginning of the episode, it honestly felt kind of forced. Overall, I don't think this episode is bad, but I don't think it's that great. Again, I think it's just alright overall. Moving on to the Merge Part 2, I'm also going to put this episode in C tier. I feel like this episode was slightly better than the Merge Part 1, but I didn't think it was that great overall. I liked the train fight scene at the beginning of the episode, that was pretty cool, and also the big battle against the Imperium soldiers by the end of the episode was also pretty cool. But just like the Merge Part 1, this episode overall honestly felt kind of boring, and I wasn't that interested when it came to the episode overall. Once again, it's not bad, but I didn't think it was that good overall. Once again, it's another alright episode. After this, we have Crossroads Carnival, and I'm going to put this episode in D tier. This was my personal least favorite episode that we got during part 1. Like I said during my review for this season, this episode honestly felt like two completely separate 11-minute episodes combined to make one 22-minute episode. Mainly because the first and second halves of this episode honestly feel really different from each other, with the first half focusing on Aaron and Sora training to be ninjas, and the second half focusing on them at the Crossroads Carnival. Also, like I said during my review, I'm not a fan of Aaron almost instantly being able to get and understand certain things when it comes to being a ninja, like the training course. Meanwhile, when it came to the original ninja, they had to constantly train and practice in order to understand that stuff. This episode is also the introduction to Dorama, and I don't really have a lot to say about him, and honestly, he was my least favorite new character that we got during this season. The stuff that we got with Lloyd was pretty cool, and I did like the idea of him being a mentor, but that's all I have to say when it comes to the episode. Like I said, this was my personal least favorite episode that we got during the season. After this, we have Beyond Madness, and I'm going to put this episode in B tier. I honestly liked this episode, and I thought it was pretty good. I liked seeing Nia back in the show. It was really cool seeing her, Kai, and Lloyd fight alongside each other again. Also, the big fight against the dragons was really cool. I really liked seeing the Craglings back. That was awesome. I thought that Ryu's moment towards the end of the episode was pretty good, and overall, when it comes to Beyond Madness, I thought this episode was pretty good overall. Up next, we have Riders of Destiny, and I'm also going to put this episode in B tier. I feel like this was another episode that was good overall. I like seeing the Cloud Kingdom back, and I do like the fact that when it comes to this episode, it actually addresses things related to the Cloud Kingdom. That's something I'm glad about. The big fight against the tentacle monsters was pretty cool, and this episode also introduced us to Euphrasia, the new elemental master of wind. Although the episode doesn't really explain how she got her powers, the only real explanation that we get is that she got them after the merge happened, but that still doesn't explain where she got her powers from. Also, this episode is the starting point of the ninjas splitting up during the season, and personally, I wasn't a big fan of that, especially since in the previous episode, that was the first time that Kai, Lloyd, and Nia had reunited in a very long time. But during this episode, they split up again. Like I said, I personally wasn't a big fan of that, but overall, I thought this episode was good. Up next, we have Return to Imperium, and I'm going to put this episode in C tier. This episode feels weird, mainly because this episode focuses on Sora's backstory and what happened to her before the events of Dragons Rising started, but it also focuses on the ninja team breaking into the Imperium Palace so they can shut down the Photech devices. And the episode constantly is cutting between Sora's backstory and the stuff going on in the current day. So the pacing of the episode honestly felt pretty weird. When it comes to Sora's backstory, it's kind of interesting with her initially being from the Imperium and her inventing the Photech devices, but I really don't have that much to say about it. Just like Dorama, Dr. LaRoe is another villain where I don't have that much to say about her, and I wasn't that big a fan of her during the season. And overall, when it comes to this episode, I think it's all right. It's not that bad, but I don't think it's that good overall. Again, I think it's just all right. After this, we have Mindless Beasts, and I'm going to put this episode in B tier. This was another episode that I thought was good. This episode functions as Wildfire's formal introduction into the show, even though she was technically in the previous episode, even though she didn't physically appear in it. And personally, I like Wildfire. I think she's a good character. I feel like her and Lloyd had some pretty good interactions. I liked the dragon stuff that we got, it was pretty cool. I feel like the jokes in this episode were a lot funnier compared to some of the jokes that we got in the previous episodes. The Sora stuff overall was alright when it came to this episode, and when it came to the Aaron stuff, in my opinion, that was the weakest part of the episode. It wasn't bad, but I didn't think it was that great overall. It was okay. But when it comes to this episode overall, I thought it was good. After this, we have I Will Be the Danger, and I'm going to put this episode in A tier. I thought this episode was pretty good overall. I think that Wildfire's backstory was handled pretty well. I especially like that for most of it, it was told with minimal dialogue, and the visuals and the music told most of the story. That was pretty good. The big fight scene at the end of the episode with the dragons going up against the Photech creatures was really cool, just like the previous episode. I feel like the jokes were honestly pretty funny during the episode. I feel like the Kai stuff that we got was pretty good, even though we didn't get that much of it and it wasn't anything that big. When it came to the stuff that we did get, I personally enjoyed it, and overall, I feel like this was a really solid episode for the season. After this, we have The Common Side, and I'm going to put this episode in B tier. This was another episode that I enjoyed. Once again, I feel like the fights were honestly pretty good. The comedy was really great. I really like the fact that we got a chance to see more of Empress Beatrix and Lord Roz. That was honestly something pretty cool. It was really cool seeing Zane appear at the end of the episode. That was awesome. And overall, I thought this episode was pretty good. Although I do have a couple issues with the episode. For starters, we have the moment where Lloyd remembers the stuff that Wu taught him when he was young, and when it comes to that moment, I feel like it is honestly pretty good and I enjoyed it overall. However, during the episode, Lloyd saw an imaginary version of Sensei Wu, and the animation on the imaginary Sensei Wu didn't look that good, and I honestly thought it was pretty distracting. And then there was also the flashback scene at the very beginning of the episode. And when it comes to that scene, there are so many continuity errors in it. And as someone who's been watching the show for a really long time, they were honestly pretty distracting. But when it came to the episode overall, personally, I enjoyed it. And finally, we have the Battle of the Second Monastery, and I'm also putting this episode in A tier. This was my favorite episode of Part 1 that we got. Once again, the episode was pretty funny, especially when it came to the stuff with Rapton. I thought the stuff that we saw with Roz was pretty interesting. The big battle was honestly really cool. Kai and Wildfire had some really great interactions with each other. And that one moment towards the end of the episode where Lloyd became a conduit for the Source Dragon and he saw those visions of the future, that scene overall was really good, and I thought it was handled really well during the episode. And like I said, this was honestly my favorite episode that we got when it came to part one of Dragons Rising. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. This is my current ranking of the episodes that we've gotten when it comes to part one of Dragons Rising. Like I said during my review for the season, I'm pretty mixed when it comes to the episodes. I feel like the episodes that we got early on during part one were kind of boring and I wasn't that interested in them. However, when it came to the episodes that we got later on during part one, I personally enjoyed them and I thought they were pretty good. And yeah, that's basically all I have to say when it comes to the episodes. Like I said, I am pretty mixed on them, but for the most parts, I enjoyed them. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. So tell me down below what do you guys think. Tell me, what is your guys' rankings when it comes to the episodes that we got during part one of season one of Dragons Rising? Tell me down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later, guys, this is Dimension Master Studios signing off.